into it too deep, but I just remember that phone call, and you said, "Hey, that's like the perfect time." He said the same thing. I told you about that.
Yep.
And I think about what we were bringing in, based on your intel, middle of May, and then of course you were talking about how that was like enough time, 12, 14 days, enough time for us to get acclimated, and it was really going to start to explode. And man, were you right?
Yeah, it's gotten wild, huh?
Here, I'm going to play the intro real quick. We only got 3 people in the house, so let me have some time to get in. We'll be right back with Jason Estes, our beloved brother. We got Jason Estes in the house, and we were just talking. It's been about 6.5, 7 weeks since we last saw each other.
It has been a small eternity.
So I don't know what we've just gone through. It's the most amazing thing I've ever experienced, and it seems to be not climaxing. It seems to be like you hit a climax, and very soon after, sometimes even the same day, you are in another version of yourself. Now, you had put up a post, I think in the last 2-3 days, and you talked about votes.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm more in touch with the frequency of what you put out than the nomenclature, but I totally get what you're saying, the drift, I think, and I'd love for you to fill in the blanks. But basically, you were talking about votes, and we'll just put that word aside for a second. And the frequency of votes was once every 30 days. And
Yep.
we've reached a point now where it's 5 times a day, and we'll reach 8 times a day, and we'll remain that way. That's
Yep.
an extraordinary expanse. That's an extraordinary amount of space that has been achieved very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And my feeling from the energy of your words is that vote is kind of has a double meaning. One, vote as in your vote in the collective, and B, or 1A or 1B, as being your personal choices that you make that are in alignment with the vote that you made for the collective.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, what we're really talking about, and we could be explaining it in a lot of different ways, and please fill us in, but it is the new human coming online with a frequency that there's no way at a once every 30 days, or even at a 10 times every 30 days, we could really have comprehended what we're actually getting into. So I'll hand it to you from there, and welcome back to the show. Thank you again for all the work that you do out there.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think of it, the best way to describe it is like presence voting, right? Like your presence is what votes. So an energetic current runs through your body, and how you handle that is your vote. So if you go into chaos, if you go into reactive mode, you like attack, then that's your vote. You're voting more chaos into the world. The thing is, there can't be more chaos in the world than there is going to be. So we actually have a dedicated timeline now, which means that by a certain point, we will no longer have chaos in the world, right? So when you vote for more chaos, instead of creating more chaos in the world, you create more chaos in your world. And that's an important thing to understand. So the other thing, though, that's really cool is in the past, you'd like vote at the beginning of the month, and then you'd have the whole month to process. Now you vote, and then 3 hours later, you vote again. So it's like, oh, I created more chaos for myself. I can acknowledge I created more chaos for myself. I'm going to process that I created more chaos for myself. I choose not to create more chaos for myself in the next vote. So it's like 3 hours. It's not really that long. But the thing that's so cool about this is, one, I don't know if everyone's noticed or not, but your resources have been restricted tremendously. So like what you used to be able to do right now is been it's just kind of cut off the wastes right now. And that's a good thing. It's a reason it's a good thing is because if you have 8 choice points or 8 votes a day, and you're not used to that, think of the amount of damage you could do to your life if you had the same amount of resources that you had prior to this. So as you become responsible with your 8 votes, all those resources are going to come back to you. And the cool part is more resources than what you had will come back to you because you'll be responsible with your 8 votes. So that's like 8 months a day worth of choices and change that can occur. 8 months a day. So if you just take a second there and you realize like what that means, that's like something that's beyond what we can even comprehend.
Yeah.
And then we also have the data points raising. So the amount of information that we have access to is also enhancing. So not just our power, our ability to choose and vote and change, but also what we vote from is enhancing. And so this is a very powerful, powerful time. And it's going to be a very powerful time up until like the end of August as we change reality back to what it should be. I mean, we're basically going to be coming so close to the edge where everyone will think that they were going to fall off. People will close their eyes, they will start screaming, everything, right? But then in the very last moment, the tracks will shift and we will go a different direction. And the reason is because of these votes and this capability. The majority of humanity is voting for less chaos in the world every day, multiple times now, which means the amount of chaos that's acceptable in the world is diminishing every day, multiple times now. And we're going to watch more and more disclosure happening as more and more truth comes out. And as we continue to vote truth and transparency in the world will echo that. So this is pretty much the greatest time that we've ever had.
Yeah.
Humanity is now in cosmic time, not linear time, but cosmic time. And the world's never going to be the same because of that. That alone is a huge monumental step. But then you look at all the other things and they're all huge monumental steps. Like you can't throw a rock now without hitting a huge monumental step. Like that is beautiful and amazing. We are there, guys. We are at the point. And for the people that just take off all the junk that they've taken on over the last year and a half and just look around, you notice it. There are more sparkles in the sky than ever before. Trees are much louder than ever before. They're communicating, they're connecting. Weather patterns are shifting. Like we're coming into the world that we knew that we could be in. It's just, can you let go of the density that you took on to get here? Can you let go of the story that got you to this point? And for a lot of people, that's what the vote is for them. It's like, oh, but this person wronged me. Well, that person might not even be that person anymore. With the amount of walk-ins and things that are occurring, you could have a completely different person than the person that wronged you.
That's what I was talking to Franco about this. And I said, I don't know exactly what it means, but this is, and it's basically what I told you. And we were just, and I said, what really stands out for me there, it's not just the personal awareness of self, but it's telling me, try to be conscious of that's happening to everybody.
Yeah.
Like try to be conscious that even the person that you spoke to 3 hours ago is going to have a higher and better version 4 more times before the end of the day and 7 more times before the end of the day very shortly.
Exactly. And that's the power of it, is like, can we as humanity let go of what was 3 hours ago? And the reason that we have our resources restricted right now is because the answer is no, we can't right now. But also, this is brand new. And I spoke about this at the event, but ultimately, we are pattern recognizing beings. That is one of the greatest gifts that humanity has. We can recognize patterns and we can play in them very fast. And I would say humanity as a total value, it doesn't like change. So what that means is that they'll sit and take something for a very long time, but eventually there will come a point where they go, no, this isn't working for me anymore. And then they'll move. And when they move, they'll move with the wisdom of all the things that didn't work. And that's a very powerful thing because it moves in a very strong, stable way forward because of the patience. So you could say humanity is lazy, or you could say that humanity is the most patient of all the races. But you would also be like, well, we're not very patient, right? Individually. But humanity as a whole is. It doesn't take very large steps easily. People do sometimes, but humanity as a whole doesn't. So the fact that we're getting to this point now where the majority of humanity is taking very large steps, not only daily, but multiple times in a day, is us coming into our creatorship, our true power and potential of what we're here to be. And the question is, and this is the question I've asked every person, it's a very simple question. Are you willing to forgive the last 3 hours of your life and everything up to that point? Because the next 3 hours of your life don't have to be the last 3 hours of your life if you don't want them to. The person that you're with doesn't have to be the last 3 hours of the person or anything prior to that. People can change so ridiculously fast, but the real question is, will you let them? Because if you're still holding them in a pattern, then you're not going to see that they've changed. But people are changing. I've forgiven every person that has ever existed at this point. Like, I'm just like, I don't know who you are anymore. And I don't know who you are after that. And I don't know who you are anymore after that. And that, and that, and that. And it's soon it's going to be like every 3 hours of every day. So it's going to be like, okay, you screwed up 3 hours ago. I'm not holding you to that. But did you learn something? And then I'll have a conversation about wisdom. Like, okay, you did screw up 3 hours ago. You can tell me that you screwed up 3 hours ago, but what did you learn from that? How have you applied? What have you changed in the last 3 hours? I'm more interested in that part of it than in the thing that you might have made a mistake in, right? Because what did you learn in the last 3 hours doesn't have that value of failure or mistake or anything. It's just like, hey, we're all human and we're learning. So what did you learn? And if I can meet you at that point of like, hey, I'm learning things in the last 3 hours, you're learning things in the last 3 hours, let's share what we learned in those last 3 hours, then there's a freedom for us to truly come together and collaborate. And that's the magic of where we're going. And I truly believe that humanity by the end of this year will have figured that out, because next year is the year of discovery and it starts in December. So we literally only have August 18th. So I think it's like the end of November before we finish 2021. So we're not in 2021. For those of you that don't understand how energy works, because of the way that it moves and changes, we don't start 2021 until August 18th. And then we end it really fast after. That's crazy to me. But then we go into the year of discovery. Discovery is going to be one of the most amazing years of our lives. It's a very long year, actually. I think it will carry over into the next year like this one did. But it's a year that I hope never ends, to be honest with you. I love discovery. Discovery is my favorite time of being alive. Like, why did we come here other than to discover?
Yeah, that was a lot. And I would have to think, I mean, it's obviously there's a direct correlation between the energy of an individual's vote through, like you said, their presence, right? Walking the talk, basically. But the amount of illusion or the amount of distortion that's coming up through these vessels, through our brothers and sisters and you and I, is immense. Yeah. And given the metrics, like, you know, the data points, as well as the votes per frequency of votes, I would have to think that you made a quick reference to what's coming in terms of at least what's being seen in the collective, that this is a real catalyst for some serious change at a very fast rate. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you want to add anything to what level of distortion we're going to see or what you think we're going to see. But it's obviously going to have both a telling role in terms of it is within as within without, but also to give us some contrast or a push, I guess, to even go further into ourselves. I mean, what's that going to look like?
Well, so at this point, we have a little over 2.6 billion actual PCs or played characters, and then NPCs or playmates, as I used to call them. Just easier with NPCs and PCs for people. So NPC is non-player character or an extra or playmate, whatever word you want to use. Basically, they run a script. Whereas there's conscious beings, right? And conscious beings are PCs. We only have 2.6 billion PCs, a little over that.
Yeah, that's so the same. By the way, that's the same number virtually within 100,000 of Francos. I'm sorry, of a million, within a million.
Yeah. So I mean, that's where we're at. So what that means is, like, we are in a time right now where the majority of reality is real, but it's also people running scripts. People that are intentionally triggering us so that we can heal the wounds once and for all, so that we no longer need to be triggered. And then at the end of August, all these beings are going to start coming in until November and take over those NPCs and become PCs. And they're all
really? Yeah. So we're going. I hadn't heard that before. So we're actually going to have more of these extras becoming PCs.
Yes.
Right on.
High
Is it good?
octave beings
Wow,
coming
that's
like
powerful. That's powerful.
amazing people
Now,
from coming down.
will this be as like traditional drop-ins or be births?
It's a little complicated, actually.
Yeah.
So what I think is going to happen is there's going to be billions of souls coming in all at once, and there'll be like a light ring, because regardless of whether they actually make it through their entire walk-in journey, it will still be a spark of information that comes through, because the moment that they penetrate into this field, that energy is present, right? Like if you actually look at the point of conception of a child, at that moment there is an energy present that is stronger. Like anyone that's ever conceived can say that that moment, it's pretty obvious if you're paying attention when that happens, right? Because there's an energetic thing that occurs. And that's going to happen in mass. All the NPCs will have that. Now, will they make it in all the way? I don't know. Some of the bodies are damaged. The circuitry is not proper. Like there's a lot of things. A high octave being resonates at a higher level than these bodies are on the earth currently. So what that means is most likely there's going to be a lot of NPCs that can't handle it. They get very sick and just fall down. Basically, they're not able to integrate. Then there's going to be some that are able to integrate. One thing that I'm really grateful for is our table that I've been working on, and we're finally ready to get it launched to the world. We're launching in August. We have it in manufacturers right now, so it will be out in the world in mass.
What is it? What is it?
It's a quantum light table. So it works from this, basically, it fills your entire body with quantum energy at a level that actually helps your blood to stabilize. So you can't really get sick as easily. Now, I can't say any medical claims around that, but we do have studies and we have a ton of testimonies and things like that. But that's going to be coming out in mass. So we're actually slowly going to be getting those things out there. I'm hoping that having that potential is going to be enough to help a lot of these walk-ins make it through things. Because it's not really about actuality as much as about potential. It's the same reason why I say, be aware that this exists. It doesn't matter whether you can own this or you're taking this, just be aware that it exists, because now it's a resource that's then available for others to use, right? So the fact that this table will then be in mass, meaning that anyone can own one eventually, potentially, means that that ally exists. So I'm hoping that that will help. I'm hoping that the crystallized roots movement, planting all these trees that create a better rhythm for the world and a higher signal, will help a lot of people to heal. This could help the integration, right? Because it's an eighth-dimensional technology. So bringing an eighth-dimensional technology into the field and then teaching nature this concept helps the entire world to learn that concept.
Yeah.
So as we progress, I think that humanity is going to have more potential than it did before. And I do think that that will help make a lot of this work. And I know that I'm not the only one that's out there creating technology to make this work. I know there's a ton of people that are bringing all their cool stuff at the end of August. And you're going to start to learn about all these really cool things. September is a major month. So many cool technologies coming out in September. It's just a very powerful time on the planet for disclosure. All these projects that have been being worked on behind the scenes for like 20 plus years are coming out in September. Like major, major things. The way that we look at fuel, the way we look at medicine, all of this stuff radically changing very fast as these new technologies are brought into the world and shown. And they're not just like soft launches, like major people are going to be promoting this technology into the world. It's a really powerful time.
Yeah, I like this. I mean, there's certainly something to be said for physicalizing the information or the technology that's received from a vessel, right? And things can be obviously injected into the field through the energetic field.
Yep.
But there's something to be said for that, because it's truly like embodying a responsible co-creator, and the potential of the creation is based on the purity of intention. Yep. that aware soul that's bringing in more multidimensionality, and then aligning in the human and producing it in collaboration is something like this. I mean, this is a whole show. We could talk about something like this table, but like, how do you get to something like that? I'm just curious. Is this through your intel? Is it through a group effort? Is it both? A little bit of both? I mean, how does something like that materialize in the world of adjacent Estes?
Well, I mean, one of my companies is a fifth dimensional research and development company. So we're always playing with high level technology in ways and trying to create them in physical form, like the products, like this, for instance, an M state. That's a powerful thing that people didn't know existed, and then we helped it to become existent. and now people can get it en masse. You know, it's really just about creating potentials for people and taking things from different planetary understandings and bringing it to Earth. Earth isn't really at a place where it's really developed yet. I mean, we are very good at what we do, but we haven't figured out what we actually can do yet, right? And so as we continue to progress, humanity is going to come up with things that is going to change the entire universe. There's no doubt in my mind that as we really get to understand what human potential is capable of, we're going to be one of those races. And the reason that we have so much support in the Galactics is because they know what we're capable of. We've forgotten. They know. Why do you think they're coming down to help us en masse? So that process is just really about time. As humanity has more time, they're going to realize what they're capable of. And as they have more time, they're going to realize what they're capable of. And I believe that one of my reasons for coming here was to really help with the technological revolution. I'm one of many that are here to do that. Lucky for me, I actually get to know a lot of those people. And those people are truly amazing, and they come up with great ideas, and I try to help them get out into the world.
Wow. So I was going to ask you that. If you knew other people, or if there was a network. So would you say that this is kind of an under the radar movement when, like, for instance, this technology busts out in September? Like, it's because as you're talking about it, I'm thinking, wow, that's pretty cool that you would have such a physicalized force, implemented collaboratively, at the same time in uniformity. What kind of impact that would have? I mean, that would be something that really couldn't escape notice.
Yeah, no, it will. That you won't be escaping notice on this kind of stuff. This is some major stuff that's going to be coming out in September. Like, this will make probably the news, to be honest with you. There will be a lot of very amazing things around that.
That'll be interesting. That'll be really interesting. Because, I mean, there's two school of thoughts, for instance, like on med beds. One part of me says I am the med bed. And then the other part of me, and I don't know, maybe that's the difference between what Franco talks about. There's an organic 3D and there's an organic 5D having, come out or fading out as an organic inverted 3D. But like, it's a more physical thing. So maybe it's the more physical part of me that needs that awareness or that possibility. Lay here and, we'll heal you, align you. And then maybe it's the 5D part of me or the higher dimensional part of me I am the med bed. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, the idea of any physical technology is to teach you what's possible with you, right? So if you look at, let's just take medicine for an example, because this is a great example. What it does is it releases chemicals that you already have. It uses chemicals to signal something in your brain that does something for you. So you already have the capability of it. You want to take drugs is a great example as well. Drugs release things you already have, but they do it in a larger amount. But you could program yourself to do the same without the drug, without the thing that is guiding you through that journey. And it's really just about learning from the thing so that you become more sovereign. So with the bed, the reason that I love this bed is like one treatment every week tops up your blood for 20 minutes. So your blood actually stays completely full and energized for an entire week.
Is the table a bed? Is that what that is? I didn't know
it is
that.
A bed. But
I didn't know that. I thought the table was something else. I didn't know that.
Oh no, it's kind of like a med bed perspective, but if you looked at it from a different way. So the way I look at it is this. I don't want something that regrows things and forces anything in my body. I want something that introduces opportunities to me, something that I can learn from very fast. And this particular bed does that. It introduces a quantum frequency that helps your body to evolve faster. It doesn't force your body to. Some people, they do one treatment and immediately they notice huge differences. Some people, it takes 3 treatments because it helps to do that. It's kind of like the dimensional sauna. That's something that will be coming out later next year. But the dimensional sauna, instead of burning our bodies up and causing us to sweat and like this force, it actually superheats your field so that all the ridges and all the misunderstandings come up and you like get to work through them. It's a completely different way of doing things. Same thing with dimensional water. I'm working on a float tank that uses dimensional water. So instead of having this space where you're like being forced into this new state of awareness, you're actually in your own fluid, realizing who you are. The key to life is really just about introducing opportunities.
Yeah. And then of course Yeah, and then to see the connection, like between, like, if you, another example to me would be like us doing this right here, like let's say
Yeah.
over a period of what's been a couple of years, right? And then one day the internet goes out, and because of the repetitivity of of us doing this, and even messaging, and because that's energy exchanging back and forth, it's almost like the pathways have been set up, like you said, these things that we create or play with, or these toys and these tools are actually physical representations of what we already have, right? Something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, we have everything within us.
Yeah.
The technology should never be something that takes away from that. It should
Right.
always
Right.
add to that. It should
It's a
help
door.
us.
Yeah. It's like a door. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I always use this example. Like if you needed to get from point A to point B, and it's 1,000 miles, you can walk that 1,000 miles. You could get a bicycle and ride that 1,000 miles. You could take a train and get there, right? Like all these different ways. Those are tools. You could walk, but you could also do the other things. And if, let's say that getting to this place created a major change for you, a change that would help everything, wouldn't it make sense to get there sooner? As long as you don't disempower yourself in the journey. So
did I freeze or did he freeze? He'll come back. What's happening, everybody?
I don't.
Oh, there
Am
he
I
is.
still here?
Hey, you disappeared for a minute.
Oh, awesome.
You said, "Wouldn't you rather get there faster?" And that's when you froze. And it's funny because Frank and I were talking about that, because I did a show a few days ago with an attorney out of Australia, and there's a whole story behind that. And very cool, doing their own thing in the legal profession. A team of ladies, council of ladies around the world. But she said to me, Franco talks about how we had the inverted 3D, and then you've got an organic 3D and an organic 5D. And there's a period where they're both there, whatever. She said, I don't want to go to 5D. I want to go to organic 3D because I've never experienced it. And again, we're talking just a way to describe it. And how she basically explained, by embodying, going into the system in a collaboration with these ladies, that's part of her purpose, and so on. And so I'd never thought of it. And to your point, my quick answer was, I'd rather get there quicker, but I don't know. I guess there's something to be said for, even considering something else like that.
Yeah, well, I agree 100% on that as well. That makes total sense to me. I think that getting to the top of the mountain should never be the rule, the thing that we're wanting, right? Like the journey to the top of the mountain is the important part. But if you're able to get to the top of the mountain faster, to understand things, and then come back to the bottom of the mountain and help everyone else get there faster, so that you guys can go to a new mountain and you can learn the same level. And this is the key. This is why I'm not a fan of force-based technology. So like drugs, injections, things like that. Like I'm not a fan of that, because when you change who you are in a rapid way, you don't learn the lessons. But if you introduce opportunities, you still can learn the same lessons. You just learn them in a faster way. It's the ability to move time differently, right? So if I drive from point A to point B, I still see the same scenery than if I walk from point A to point B. But can I process point A to point B at that same level? And that's where the real challenge comes in, is like, if I go too fast, did I miss something along the way? If I did, I'm going to go back, because you can't miss things. It's impossible. The way that we're designed, the way that free will works, it's literally impossible. You will loop around something until you learn it, and then you'll move forward. Then you'll loop around something until you learn it. And so it looks like you're moving forward, but you're not really moving forward. I call that illusionary spirituality. I'm sure that's what he calls inverted 3D. But ultimately, you can't not see the thing that you need to see. You will go through that path over and over again until you do. And so having tools is great. Like I think it's a wonderful way to do things, as long as you don't empower the tools over yourself.
Right.
It's not about that. It's about creating opportunities to go at the speed that you're ready to go at. And that's why I love this table. That's why I love these products, is because they're not designed to speed me up. They're designed to support me to speed myself up.
Yeah. And I think that you see a lot of that. You see it from women that are downloading dragons and never painted anything with information. And then they share it in a deck of cards, and there's just so many different things you could point to. Like you said, there's many paths up the mountain, but there's something to be said for the power of the intention of a responsible co-creator who's on their game, especially as we start to work in co-creation and collaboration. There's something to be said for the energy that's in that creation, because as much of it as might be infinite intelligence and download, the real God mechanism to me is the motion of it, right? Like, so it's taking, like you said, like I can walk from here to Dallas and I can be there in the speed of light. But the point is, what do I arrive with? Am I balanced and founded on, am I stabilized? Have I integrated? And speaking of that, I don't mean to change the subject, but I don't want to forget, because there seemed to be a 6 or 7 week period of deep integration. And I don't know what happened after Soulogy Fest, but it seems to have cleared a little bit. So I just, as a reminder.
As of today.
As of today. Okay. Yeah.
Today is the first day that we're like starting to stabilize and understand what's all going on now. And yeah, we're going to get another huge boost this weekend. But
nice.
Once that happens, then we begin to recognize the patterns. And the pattern is, hey, we can now vote this way. Hey, we can now move this speed. Okay, well, now that we can move this speed, how do we do it responsibly? And that's what humanity is going to be learning. Right now, we're learning, hey, we can move this fast now. Okay, this is familiar to us because almost everyone that's here that's still alive in a PC, they've moved at this speed before. Most planets move at this speed. But in human bodies, we've never moved at this speed before. So we're learning how to move at this speed and be human. And I love your point that you said there. You can move from here to Dallas at light speed, right? But you wouldn't take your body with you. You'd be dead. Your body would have given out from the pressure. And the reason that I do what I do and build the things that I build is this. So Stephen Hawkings, are you familiar with that person?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. When they began to download the information that they began to download, it destroyed their human body. That literally is what happened. The amount of electricity forced their brain to use more resources than their body could create. And so they became frail and broke down. I don't think that has to be the future for people. I truly believe that if we have the right resources, our body doesn't have to take the brunt of the damage. So that's why this table is so important to me. That's why these products that I'm working on are so important, because I believe that human optimization requires that we learn things we don't know. Because right now we're running at like 10% of our capabilities. And that's if you're at the high end of the spectrum. Most people are like 6 to 8% of the spectrum. So how can we get to 100%? Well, we can't get to 100% in the way that we understand today. That's too high. It's too much. So how do we change that? And I think the answer is learn new things, experience different ways, which means sometimes at first that might be with products. But everything I've ever designed is designed to learn from and then to not need it ever again. It's the same thing with the table. Someday you won't need the table anymore. In fact, people that have used it for months at a time realize that they don't need to use it but like once a month, if that, because they top up their frequency, they get into that space, and then they don't really need it anymore because they're able to upkeep it themselves. And it's a magical thing that's capable. And we have studies on that, so that's pretty cool. But the point is, as we continue to progress forward as humanity, we're going to have a time period where tools are going to be important because, like you said, you could get to Dallas using light speed, but you would give up your body doing so. You could get to Dallas walking, but you would experience a very long delay. You could get to Dallas on a bicycle, another delay, but not as long. You could get to Dallas in a car, so on and so forth, right? Like on a plane, like all those things. Those are tools that speed you up, but don't kill you in the process. But if you go at light speed in the current body that you're in, you couldn't handle it. Your body can't handle that much time moving around you.
Yeah.
Yet.
Well,
now, I don't think that that's going to be a permanent thing. And that's where these things are not permanent tools either. I don't think that anything that we have today is what we're going to have 100 years from today. I think that everything that we have today is part of the process of helping us realize that we don't need it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we go back to number of frequency, echo. If we go back to the frequency, the metrics that we might cite that from you, which would be votes and data points and such, and just hold that in our thoughts for a second, and then you think about the level of transformation and really creation manifestation of the human race in the 1900s.
Yep.
And then if you apply that measure of growth as a baseline, and then throw a multiplier in there, whatever you want to call it, of this increase, that's obvious, and of course kind of explained through your metrics. I mean, 5 years,
Yeah,
10
yeah.
years. I mean, if you've got this level of technology being presented, let's say in September, in collaboration, through this network under the radar, that to me says a lot more than what it speaks of in terms of technology, but in terms of everything, like our awareness, our abilities, level of speed of computation, and understanding and application. I mean, this thing is really feels to me like, for the first time, that what we've been talking about, what we've been heading to and feeling, is really happening. Like, it's too late to stop now, kind of thing.
Yeah, and if you look at like just the world stage for a minute, I don't usually bring world events into things, but this one won't get us removed from YouTube, so don't worry about that.
I'm not worried about
So,
it. We have a clean record. We're good.
okay, well there you go. Yeah, so if you look at what Wells Fargo just did, which is ending credit, right? They're like in the process of shutting down credit cards, bank loans, mortgages, all those things, right? We're coming to a world where credit, the ability to borrow from our future, is no longer acceptable as a race. That's a pretty big deal. To say that we no longer need that, so it's starting to dissolve, so that we're starting to come into this place where we're like, oh, we're worthy of being present and earning our future, instead of taking from our future so that we feel good in our present, which has been the belief structure on this planet for the longest time, which weakens your future with every day that you live instead of strengthens it. And now that we're coming to this point where this is starting to become out there in the news, people are starting to hear it. People are starting to wonder about certain things. They're starting to ask questions. Then you look at like what crypto's doing, and like the idea of what crypto's doing. Let's just talk about KDA for a second. 22.5% PA per annual, per year, 22.5% interest rate. That's insane. Like, that's utter insanity. And that's becoming more of a normal thing now. So as more and more things come out there and say, hey, this is possible, people aren't doing it, but it's possible, then people go, well, why would I settle for less? Why would I go this route? And so there's a very strong thing happening in the world. And I love crypto because it follows energetic law. I love it. I love the fact that it's immutable truth and that it runs on transparency. Like, that's amazing. But you look at it from a currency perspective, currency, the ability to transact or trade energy. Okay, we can look at that from any way we want, but ultimately, stored value. We have to have a storage of value. We do, because we don't understand our own value enough to truly optimize yet. Now, am I saying it's going to be that way 100 years, 200 years? I don't know. I have no clue, to be honest with you. No clue. And I don't want to know. I'm actually enjoying the ride a lot right now. But the fact that we're coming to a point where we're realizing that our stored value deserves to also gain value, that's a powerful time to be alive. We're now in that, and that's just from a financial perspective. You look at spirituality, people are starting to realize that cultivation of value is important to them, that they want to be a better version of themselves in the world. You look at the things that are going on with our fuel sources and the way that we look at energy, clean energy versus dirty energy, power energy versus this, like all this stuff. We're asking real questions now. For the first time as humanity, we're starting to sit down and go, what is our consequence? What does it look like to continue to borrow from our future? And how is this damaging us today? How can we improve? We actually have a place in our space now where we actually can go, how can we improve? The majority of people are asking that same question now.
It's
we had
interesting.
enough of a pause with 2020 that we began to go, well, things can't work like this anymore. This is going to end. So how can we do better? And people didn't have a choice. Literally, they were stuck in their houses. They had to go through what they had to go through. And they had to feel a lot of emotions that they weren't willing to feel because they'd always stayed in motion, constantly taking from the future to be present today. Well, that is a system that eventually you don't have a future to borrow from. And we hit that point. We broke open and we began to realize, how do I become present without taking from my future? How do I become present by cleaning up my past? Because that's the reason we were borrowing from our future, because we were dragging our past with us, which weighed more than we could carry. So we had to buy things from our future to balance our past because we didn't want to look at our past. And now we can't not look at our past, and we are borrowing from our future, starting to get an X around it, saying, hey, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep borrowing from your future. So we're living in a time that's never been before. We're living in a time where humanity is being asked to be responsible at a level they've never been asked before. They're being shown an ability to manipulate time in a way they never knew was possible, a way to cultivate value in extreme ways. This is true magic. Like, this is the most magical time we've ever had, and we're just starting it. Like, today's day one of what magic is going to be. We're really starting to like understand that. You know what I mean? So it's a powerful, amazing time.
Yes, it is. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Exactly.
This thing. Hang on, let me let your sound waves die. Stored value. That sounds very, very interesting. I love anything that can expand my mind and my experience. But stored value, I kind of got what you're saying, that we're coming from a place where we don't know our value. So there's some consideration that should be had or would be understandable, that our value might take on certain characteristics, such as financial, such as creative, such as what we produce, our work, our passions, our loves, or whatever. And then the need or the again, to consider an expansion of, let's just say in this case, of money, of finance, as using a more conscious way of building value, which we know at some point will go away. And then you look at, say, TikTok and YouTube, what do they call them, influencers, and people that get 1 million views, and they've got all this influx of attention, and really it's all energy. And I love the way you described everything, because especially in relation to money and our relationship with money, which was really energetically exactly what you said in terms of borrowing from the future. But yeah, I find that interesting, because then I wonder, not knowing the answer, how much of my effort is to continue the process and try to affect change in the field by changing myself, or is that always part of it? Is there going to be like an alignment with every single thought, word, and action that I take, and am I still going to be in the flow of that? And I guess overall, how quick things could change. Like you said, you're creating a product that you use one time, and this is the intention. You use one time, or products, and then the door is opened, and that's it. And that is really, that's really to me, very much in alignment with what you see, like with practitioners now, where they're saying, just come to me one time. But I guess where I'm going with all of that is, I get a little bit confused in between, like, say, my work with Soulogy and my work with Todd. It seems like if my work with Todd kind of takes care of everything else, and I'm in this weird space now, especially the last few weeks, of how do I build? because like I see things actually coming into place without doing anything based on the old perspective. It's really a quickly changing atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, all you got to do is just be present, right? Like, as lame as that sounds to most people, and as basic as that is, it really is basic. Like, that's it. Just show up and be present and open to the opportunities that come when you show up, because they always will. Like, if you go outside and you do something that is authentic as you'll find that people will see you do that thing and come up to you and ask you, hey, what is that thing you just did? I've never seen it before. Because they couldn't have seen it before, because it was authentic to you. The problem is that we live in a world where we're taught to fake it till we make it. Yeah. And by faking it, we're not being us. If I go outside and I fall on my face because I trip on a log, right? But I didn't know that log was there, and I trip on it and I fall on my face, somebody will probably run up to me and be like, are you okay? And then I will start having a conversation with that person, be like, yeah, I'm okay. Thank you so much for worrying about me, right? Like all this stuff, right? And then we might be friends, but if I didn't trip on that log, if I wasn't willing to trip on that log, I would never have made that friend. That's what it means to be authentic. That's what it means not to fake it till you make it, but just to live and enjoy the life that you have. Because if you live authentically, you will find the world will rally around you every single time. And yeah, it might rally around you because you fell on your face, but it doesn't matter because you live authentically and now the world sees that.
Yeah.
If you live authentically, you will change this world.
That's the
rest of it is like how you change this world. Like I have a ton of companies. The reason I have tons of companies is because every time I get to a point in time and space where there isn't something that I need, I just build it. And then I move forward again. And then I build another thing. But if there was ever something there, and actually I just ran into a company that is there, it's like, okay, I know that solar is important for the power grid. We need to change things. So I prayed about it, and somebody came to my door that was offering solar and generators. And I was like, okay, this is exactly what I need. And then I vetted them and they were exactly what I needed. And now they're going to help me with financing for the table. So it all turned out perfectly because I was in the middle of the meeting and God was like, go answer your door. And I'm like, I'm in the middle of a meeting. Okay, no. I'm going to go answer my door. And I go and answer my door. And it's this person that I had been praying about, everything that I was looking for, right? So all you have to do is show up. I could have easily been like, hey guys, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to keep this meeting going. And I'm not going to listen to God. I'm not going to do the thing that I'm feeling called to do right now. But instead I was like, no, I feel called to do this thing, even though I'm doing this other thing.
Yeah.
It's my group of people that I hang out with, they don't care if I'm like, hey, give me 5 minutes. I got to sort something out. Like they don't care. They're like, okay, whatever it is, just tell us the story when you get back because it's going to be great. If you're stopping what you're doing to do this thing, it's going to be great. And that's because I surround myself with people who get it. They understand what it means to show up authentically because it wasn't authentic to stay in that conversation. It was authentic for me to go answer my door. And while that looks weird to the world, I don't care. I'm already weird. I already know that.
Yeah, we're all weird. That's where all the weird people hang out. But and it's interesting because it's an interesting mix. And I don't know. It's just like the word that keeps coming to me is transparency. The question is at what level in the moment? Because what I'm noticing in others and I'm noticing in myself, which again, this is that point you make about walking from here to there. Are you getting the code and will you be able to, to activate it and initiate it? But it's just like
one thing that will help with that, just because I see where you're stuck, is optimization. It's not that I can't walk from here to Dallas. It's that it's not optimum for me to walk. It might be more optimum for me to do this other thing, because our human experience being optimum is how we learn more. That's our dimensionality coming online. But if we don't have the resources to process the information, meaning that we didn't learn the thing from the book thing or whatever it was that we needed that day, we felt guided to go read this book. We didn't read the book. We decided, no, we're not going to read the book. Then we ran into a person who wanted to talk to us about the book, right? Then we miss out on that. We're not in optimum presence. We're not there fully ready for what it is. We're only showing up maybe with 10% room where we could be at 100% room.
Yeah.
I like to empty the glass every moment. As soon as I realize I'm in a new moment, I'm like, empty the glass as fast as I can, get as empty as possible, show up, be present, and see what fills me in that moment.
Yeah, I get that. I was where I was going with that too was transparency, being some type of force. That's the best I can explain it. It's a strong characteristic of what the energy I'm trying to explain, which is an energy that's in motion and an expansion constantly. So again, picking up the landscape as you go, and then really integrating it. But from that standpoint, it's almost like, if I have to describe the energy in myself, talking less, aware of more, knowing what I know as a frequency, not as a person talking, and just understanding that whatever this is that's happening, I'm trying to get used to, is it's attracting everything that I would ever want. It's a transparency frequency that doesn't need to have a speaker or even any words. And it's weird because to me, it really feels like it's getting louder and louder, not just for me, but I think for everybody. So it's pretty mind blowing. And then to go into, like the efforts every day, and watch those kind of align in a totally different way. So it's an interesting mix. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, I feel like the more that we empty our cup, the more we realize that we have infinite resources. The more that we hold on to our cup, the more that we realize that we're in scarcity. So if I am willing to empty my cup knowing that I have infinite water, that I'm the one giving me the water, right? Like that's the force you're talking about. For me, I consider it the highest version of me, right? Mm-hmm. But ultimately, everybody has their way of looking at whatever they want to look at. So I know that if I empty my water, because I know that the next moment is asking me to empty my water, that's faith, that I will be filled in the next moment, right? That's faith. And so coming from a space where we have faith that moves us, and I teach that faith is the beginning of the fifth dimension, that you cannot enter the fifth dimension without faith. And I think that that's what we're in right now, is we're learning what faith actually is, right? Because you don't cultivate faith in good times.
I don't think it's over yet.
Yeah, well, no, it's not. We've got a while to go. But the idea is that we're beginning to understand faith. We jumped in order to get to where we are today. This is why this is such a big deal. In order to get to where we are today, we had to jump off of a cliff into an infinite ravine that goes infinitely high and infinitely low, meaning that you can never touch the bottom and you can never touch the top. So we all jumped off this cliff collectively. Every single person that's still here. That's what the last vote was, that said yes. We're all going to do this, or we're not going to do this. And we lost millions of people actually because of it. But the people that stayed jumped. And the cool part is faith is the wings that carry you so that you can glide and everything. But what's so fun about faith is faith isn't timed. So if I jump off the cliff and I'm like infinitely down and you're like infinitely up, but you're floating on faith, right? And I turn my faith on, I'm equal to you now, because in faith, we all are equalized. And so coming into this space of faith as humanity is our next journey forward. And it's going to take infinite time. But the thing is, we have it. We literally have infinite time now. So does it matter? No, because when we get there, it's going to be awesome. And also, we're already there. But also, we're not really there. But we could be there, you see? And that's the beauty of it, is like, do you want to live down here in faith? Or do you want to live up here in faith? It doesn't matter, because it's the same point of reference regardless. If you're in faith, you're at that point of equality with everything else. If you're not in faith, it's just that you aren't there yet, because everyone will come to faith eventually. Yeah. And faith, so the struggle, the need to get to faith, is the problem that keeps you from being in faith. Certainty is the opposite of faith. As long as you are certain of something, you cannot have faith in that thing.
Bingo.
And so that's what's happening. Certainty is being removed from us on every level possible. All that's left is faith.
That's why I keep saying, I'm not okay. If you get what I'm saying, it's, if I was okay, I wouldn't be here. And if you get what I'm saying, I'm just saying that every time I'm certain of something, I find out I don't know anything, which is where I want to be, because that's that transparency I'm talking about. And it's not like I got it figured out, but I've had enough, and I think we've all had enough flashes or glimpses of it to say, oh, wait, whoa, that feels pretty good. But really, certainty covers so much more than what we might think. It's every one of our prejudices and biases and unconscious program and blind spots. I mean, it's never taking your eye off the ball, because we are being reminded a little bit stronger every day. And I have a feeling it's going to get even stronger when we when we ignore things or whatever.
You can't ignore things when you have 8x vote in a day. Every day, good luck.
Even 5.
You'll vote, and you'll vote to ignore it, and then it'll come back much stronger the next time, and you might vote to ignore it there. But by the time that you get to your 8th vote of the day, you're gonna be like, I'm looking at it, all right. I'm yep, completely.
I think that's when I think that's when we finally concede and say it's me.
Yep. And that's the future. That's like, we're all going to get there, right? Yeah. It's just when we get there. And the thing is, it doesn't matter when we get there, because we're all going to get there. So if we live our life knowing that we're going to get there, and that every moment is perfectly designed to help us get there, then you're going to be there before you know it. But if you're trying to get there, then you're certain that you're going to get there, then you don't have room for faith.
Yeah.
And that's the free fall. That's why we jumped off the cliff. There was literally nothing to land on. We looked down and we were like, well, what's down there? And they said infinite. You're like, oh, okay. Well, what's up there? Infinite. Well, what's the difference? Nothing. Oh, what? Why would I do that?
That's 0 point.
Yeah. And so that was kind of the interesting thing there. But we all collectively jumped off together. Yeah. And some of us have found our wings, and some of us are free falling and screaming, and others around us are free falling and screaming. Some of us are flying together, and it doesn't matter because humanity as a team jumped off in faith. They're having to find their faith, but they're in the journey now. We are all in the journey of faith now. We've all jumped off of the chasm into a whole new world. That is really what this is about.
I saw this Abraham Hicks meme, and it said, essentially, the universe knows your heart's desire. So in other words, you put up your, you're putting that out there.
Yeah. To
go look for it, or to look to see if it's coming, sends out 2 different frequencies.
Yep.
It's exactly what you're saying. It's like, in fact, I don't even have to tell the universe, although maybe it comes up now and then, what I want. Other than when I go, and I'm like a lot of us, I'm sure, what can I do? How can I serve? What do I not know? Those questions that might, create newer versions of me in a more accelerated way. But yeah, it's changed so much since I met you, for all of us. 2+ years. I mean, it's changed so much, and it looks like the level of change based on your metrics with the votes is number one, speeding up far beyond exponentially, will plateau, and will start to integrate in a more, let's say a more general way as quote unquote time goes on. Kind of. Okay.
So the vote aspect of it will never go more than a vote every 3 hours, meaning that a major choice point every 3 hours.
Okay.
But the data point ratio that's currently at 640, it's going to go to 710 next week, then probably like the 800s the week after that, and so on and so forth. But it'll be a little over 1,000 by August 18th. We've never increased other than once a month, ever. And we're about to have our second increase on the 21st. So It's never happened before, which is new. But as we get used to that, and again, data is cool because it's access. So it's more horsepower for your vehicle. The choice point is how well you drive your vehicle. But the horsepower of your vehicle is going to be amped up tremendously over these next years. The ability to drive your vehicle is where it's going to get interesting. Because if you're moving at the speed of light in the direction that you don't want to go, then you're going to still move in the speed of light in the direction you want to go, right? Because eventually you're going to hit that point that you don't want to go. You're going to learn, you're going to go to the next location, then so on and so forth. So you're going to bounce around for a while, but you'll eventually learn what you need to learn. You're going to get there. The real question is, will your body survive you learning to drive? And that's the question that we ask all teenagers. It's like, okay, how confident are you in driving? Not very confident? Well, here's a driver's ed thing. Learn about this for a bit, right? And that's why our resources have been restricted right now, is so that we don't wreck our car on day one. We're in a driver's ed vehicle. It's not even our own car. We're learning to handle the driving because we've never driven with this speed before. And we're going to be speeding up every week. So it's going to be even more speed. So we have 1 week, but each day is an 8 months period. So the amount of time is just ridiculous. We can do this, but we don't know that we can do this yet because we've never done it. And so there's a fear, there's an insecurity that comes up. There's a worthiness that comes up. Am I worthy of driving this speed? Am I worthy of getting what I want that fast? I like to use Elon Musk as an example because he did this thing where he invested in Bitcoin, and then he made I think it was $1 billion in 3 days. And he talked about how that was unfair, that he made so much money so fast that there was something off. And that was a worthiness factor. That growth was too much, too fast. Because the first billion, it took him I think it was 10 or 15 years for him to make, right? And that's the same concept. Are we worthy of moving that fast towards what we want? And the answer is, for most of us, no. But will we be worthy of it? Absolutely, 100%, if we survive. And I say if we survive because it's the same thing as driving a car. You can only wreck it so many times before the driver of the vehicle might not make it alive through that. So That's why we are in a different car that's slower. That's why we have our resources restricted for the next few weeks, is so that we don't wreck the car going too fast, not knowing how to drive. It's the same thing you would do with like a little infant driver. Like whenever they first learn to drive, you don't go, oh, here is a Lamborghini Diablo. Like go and just max it, put the pedal to the metal, and don't worry about the lights and things, all the things that are telling you what to do. Don't follow the signals. Just floor it. We'll be okay. No, you teach them about what the signals mean. You teach them how to pay attention to certain signs, right? Like it's the same thing. We as humanity are learning to drive in time faster than we've ever done. And so we're all having to learn to pay attention to the signs, to the signals. And we have a driver with us that say, hey, you know, right now that sign means to slow down. This sign means to turn here, right? And so as we learn this over these next few weeks, we're going to eventually start getting our resources given back to us. And as that happens, you're going to notice that you're going to get in your own vehicle and you'll be responsible for your own vehicle, because that's the power of sovereignty. No one is responsible for your vehicle other than you. So you better upkeep your vehicle, and you better make sure that you drive in the way that works for you. Because if you're authentic and you get into a car crash, that's okay, because it's all planned. It's perfect. They're all there waiting for you. It's like, oh, here's your car crash. Here's everything you need to take care of this car crash. The bodywork person's here. Oh, and by the way, the person that hit you, this is their number. This number actually is going to help you with this connection here. And all this is you can't even imagine. And that's because you, up here, the highest version, created the perfect plan for you to crash. So don't go, oh, I crashed, I must be a horrible driver. Be like, okay, I crashed. I was doing everything that I knew to do, and I crashed. What can I learn from this? Because 3 hours later, you're going to get asked the same question, and you can crash again if you want to, but you don't have to. And that's the future.
When you say survive, are you directly talking about the physical body?
Yes.
Okay.
The spiritual being survives everything.
Yeah, of course. But I wanted to be clear. And and I think that could, strike a little fear into people. I mean, we're all still finding our way. But my point is, our question is, if a person is, because there seems to, the body's really come on in this year. I mean, everyone's pretty much talking about it and feeling it. But I guess what I'm saying is, it seems like that there's a very friendly collaboration going on with that which is bigger than us in terms of our ability to transform our physical bodies regardless of what's happened in the past.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, hey, the body's coming online. Don't kill yourself, but just start taking steps to bring it into a lighter density, because that's essentially, I think what you're saying is that all this is coming in, but there's things have to change in order for it to come in, or if it wants to remain, it has to assimilate at or near the frequency of it, right?
Yeah. So in that analogy, your car is your body. You drive your vehicle. Your vehicle is your body, right? So if you wreck your body, that's up to you. You can do that, but you can't wreck it constantly, because if you continue to constantly wreck it, it's hard for it to repair. With the amount of time that we have, we can repair our bodies faster than we ever could. With the amount of resources and support we have, we can repair our bodies faster than we ever could. Literally, we have more support than we've ever had, and tomorrow we'll have more. Not less, more. So if you choose to check out at this point in the game, it is literally a choice. And that's something that's really important to understand. There's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah.
You have more support than you've ever had before. You're going to have more tomorrow. That is not ever going to end. We will always have more support than we did the day before. That's the beauty of where we're headed, right? So how do I describe this in a way that makes sense? So I talk about time and how it moves in this way, and how in the long run, it started to move this way for a while, right? And so we began to speed up. And if you look at the Aboriginals and you look at other cultures, they were timekeepers. Their entire premise and purpose was to spend the planet and time in a positive way. And then we got into confusion and chaos, and more things were introduced, and we began to spend in a negative way. Data points create an opportunity for us to clear the confusion so that we can spend in a positive way faster, meaning drive faster. Votes give us an ability to go to new locations faster. So we're able to update where we want to go faster in real time is the best way I can describe it. Before, you would meditate on it for like a day, and then you'd like realize what you want to do, and then 3 months later the thing would happen. Now you meditate on it for a day, and then it's there when you open your eyes. You're like, oh, okay, what just happened? Okay, I didn't realize that I was meditating in that intensity, right? But that's what's going to happen. We're going to learn that fast. So what we're afraid of, we're going to manifest. What we love, we're going to manifest. We're going to grow so fast, it's going to be ridiculous. But here's the beauty of this. All these NPCs are here to help that happen faster in a graceful way, in a less painful or destructive way. So we have more support than we ever have. And if you choose not to opt out, meaning that you choose to stay a PC in this experience, then you will have more NPCs every day to help you with that. And it will continue to go that way. And we will finish all these third density contracts once and for all and begin to move into higher densities as humanity, as team humanity, on a team, not alone. I think that that's the part that people don't understand. You're not the only one going through it.
Exactly. You are a higher version of yourself many times during the day, right? Or a few times. And other people are going through the same thing. I'm glad we're talking about what you call the NPCs or the extras, because it's bringing me some clarity, because I had a little bit of, I look at everything as the God substance, right? And I know that's true, but of course, in our futile efforts to try to understand, I'm just curious and I want to understand. But you've created a little bit of a link there, in that there is, because I hadn't thought about it, there is the possibility of, or even just knowing or being open to these NPCs taking on a PC form. Like, I think that's interesting, because one of the things I've noticed is, especially in the last 6 or 7 weeks since Soulogy Fest, I've never really looked for the NPCs. And because we're able to see things more energetically first, I guess, or at least that seems to be what's happening, I have noticed that there are certain players that are providing the same energy. And I also noticed that it's kind of fading, not like radically, but just fading and just fading. But I do see the uniformity in their energy. And I find that kind of interesting, because at the same time, there's a part of me that looks at, let's say, this person or that person and our connection or lack thereof. And there's a knowing in me that there's going to be a time, in what we might call our future, where we come back together. I say this, about some of my friends and people that I just know, like, say, just on a professional level.
I look at it like this. In the end of days, there will only be truth. When we are at the end of days, we will all be in truth. When we're all in truth, none of us will matter what game we played to get there.
That's right.
So it's inevitable that everyone will come back together who is still here. It's inevitable. Literally impossible for it not to happen in truth. Now, I don't have certainty of when that will happen. I have an idea of really close guesstimates, but when absolute truth becomes, then nothing else can be. And we will all live in that space, which means that the way that we look at humanity, it's not that we will be devoid of a personality, because we'll still very much be in that, but it'll be an ascended personality, something that we can't really conceive of right now, because there's still wounds and density contracts that everyone is dealing with. There's no one here that is ascended permanently. It doesn't exist. Ascending is the only way. And you ascend for the rest of your lives. Infinite up, infinite down, like I said before. So if you think that you're ascended, then you might as well leave, because you are done. And if you're really done, then there's nothing else here for you. So go. But if you're ascending, by all means, please come help out, because we're all doing that together right now. And I would love more support in this, and everyone's doing that. And that's what's beautiful, is I'm seeing more and more people that are like, oh, I didn't actually ascend. I thought I did, but I'm ascending, and I'm okay with that. And that okayness with that is what creates the opportunity for faith to be cultivated. If you believe that you've ascended, if you've reached the top of the mountain, and you don't want to ever go back to the bottom and help others reach the top of the mountain so that they can help others reach the top of the mountain until everyone's at the top of the mountain, and then we find another mountain and climb it together, then that's fine. Just leave. Like, don't be part of the game. That's okay. But don't stay at the top of the mountain forever and be upset and heap problems and boulders on the people trying to climb the mountain. That's not a nice thing to do. It's not helping, right? And that's what we're seeing. And I honestly think a lot of these people are PCs that turned into NPCs. Like, I see so many of these high-level spiritual teachers, people that have huge followings, doing tear-down lives now, where they just like find a person they don't like, and they take their entire following and they tell their entire following why they should hate this person. And I'm just like, okay, this is not a PC thing. This is not a thing that would actually work as a PC. The amount of karmic consequence and the responsibility that would be occurring, it's off the charts. There's no way this could actually happen. So then I started sitting back and paying attention. I was like, oh, okay, so this is an NPC providing this teardown so that this massive healing can occur for this person. And can they forgive this person? Can they work with this person? Could they make room? Because tomorrow that person might be a PC again. We don't know. And that became this really interesting game for me, because I've been publicly torn down several times, and mass followings. Just like,
don't feel like I haven't had it to that degree, but I've had it to some degree. We've had it.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's part of the journey. You know, it just didn't make sense to me. And then as I began to understand NPCs, and I began to understand their entire premise is to run scripts so that anything that is unresolved within us can come up. I was like, whoa, I guess I had that echelon. I didn't know that I had that echelon, that I needed to be publicly shamed and humiliated. But now that I go through the experience, I can feel that hurt. And since that hurt, there's something in me that needs to heal. So I take that hurt up and I look at it and I go, oh, okay, cool. Well, I can see that I didn't get enough attention when I was 6, and this is what led to this thing and caused these things. And now I can see that this was a need for attention, and now I got the attention. It was negative attention, but it was still attention. So it triggered the wound just the same. And now I don't have to have that happen again. And since I don't have to have that happen again, all the contracts related to that don't have to happen again for everyone else, because now a choice has been created for them. Just like when anyone heals anything, a new choice is downloaded into the collective. It doesn't matter what you're healing. This is why I tell you to be authentic at all costs. Like, go out into the world, and if you have to trip on a log, trip on a log, man. That log is there for everyone. So if you trip on it and you say, hey guys, there's a log here, people will be like, oh, thank you for letting us avoid that log. This is great. And then some people might still trip on that log. And that's okay too, because they'll stick another sign there. They'll say log located here, until eventually the log will get picked up by somebody that can and dissolved into nothingness. And then that doesn't have to exist anymore. That's the difference between suffering and alchemy. Like, we are now in that stage of alchemy where we can start picking up those obstacles and dissolve them until all that's left is the 4th density. And then from there, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump to the 5th density. Super fast, actually, because the 4th density is a plane, whereas like 5th is like this, and 3rd is like this, right? So like a plane. And so it's something that you stand on only to jump to the next level. Like, that's it. And we're in that journey now. So we're just cleaning up the last little residuals, and then we'll be on our way.
And you mentioned, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. I'd like to hear, again, the period up through August, or I guess, we got a feel for that, I believe. But post, September forward, and then you mentioned beginning, I think, December is the year of discovery. What leads up to from that last quarter of the year? What's your feeling on what that is, and what is the year of discovery?
Well, so first of all, humanity is going through redemption right now. Energetically, we haven't begun the redemption, but physically we did. So like 2020 was the year of truth, where all that wasn't true was kind of like highlighted on a level that couldn't be unhighlighted. And people began to like pick apart the lies until they started to see like pieces and remnants of truth and being like, whoa, I can't believe that that's actually true. Holy crap. Aliens are real. Wow, this is crazy. Like, oh, this thing, right? And like all of these pieces started to show up for people. And they were like, okay, I can't not see that this thing happened. But if this thing is, then what does that do for me? How does that change me? And so truth began to integrate into people. And as it did, these wounds started to show up in people. They started to go, well, I'm not what I thought I was. And there was 2 options there. You can either say, oh, I'm not what I thought I was, and I want to be what I thought I was, meaning that I want to grow, Or I'm not what I thought I was, but I can't let anyone see, so I'm going to pretend. And that's how you can tell the difference between people. The people that chose this became NPCs over time, because every time that they chose to not be conscious and real was one step closer to becoming an opt-out. And each vote tests you on that. It's like, hey, can you be real with this? Doesn't matter if you trip on the log. And I use that example a lot because falling on your face in front of people is very awkward. It's not always fun. I mean, you're going to make mistakes. That's what it means to be a pioneer. If no one's ever done it before, if you think you're going to get it right on the first time, I'll give you applause, but realistically, I don't think you're going to. And so that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's funny. Takes me back to like a week ago, and I'm having a conversation with a few aspects, and that whole exchange came through, not as in an occurrence in that moment, but more of like, do you see this pattern? We kind of say, hey, you don't have to do it that way. Oh no, I know what I'm doing. I'm jumping in. Just kind of brought back a funny memory. Yeah.
It's a good memory.
Yeah.
So that's what we're in now, though. We're redeeming ourselves. We're like, okay, we either are fake, and it's okay that we're fake, and we now know that we're not fake anymore because we're becoming authentic, or we know that we're fake and we want to hide it from everyone else, so we're becoming more fake. And that's the divide that's been created. Because when truth shines its light, there are those that will walk towards it, and there are those that turn their back on it. And that is what the rest of this year is, up until the end, basically the end of December. And that's what we call redemption.
Yeah.
And truth shined, redemption began, and discovery is once you walk into the light. Because once you walk into the light, all that's left is truth. Everything else starts to dissolve, and you just go, okay, I'm discovering what I really am. And I think that discovery is going to be the year where we find our true potential as humanity. And then the next year after that, 2023, is the fifth dimensional technological revolution. So I think that we have a good year and a half before we're in the fifth dimension, from a perspective of non-solid state, but like the beginning steps of the fifth dimension. And I mean from a density perspective. So a jump from the fourth into the fifth, which again, that jump is the leap of faith, which we've already taken physically. We voted for it. Now the last human on the planet, it's going to take about a year for it to happen for it. But we all did it. We all chose to do it. And now it's just honoring our choice, and we don't have a choice not to honor our choice, because that's where the vote comes, and that's where humanity as a team did it. We all jumped off. Bodies didn't fall yet. Like, no one's bodies have jumped off yet. Well, some actually. But the majority of people are like, okay, I jumped. I don't feel like I can jump yet, but I know that I'm going to jump, and I agreed to jump. And so they're standing on the edge of the thing, but their spirit jumped. So they're learning all the lessons. They're just not embodying them yet. And that will happen. As time progresses, we will notice people will embody like that. It'll be fast. You will be like, wait a second. You were just, what? Okay, I'm listening. Keep going. You're extremely wise now somehow. Keep going, right? And that's that thing where, can you forgive the past and let someone show up every 3 hours as someone new? Can you do that? If you can't, you're going to find that your year is a lot harder next year than it could be.
That's a really good.
Yeah, it's going to be a great year.
That's a really good way to kind of keep yourself in check. Really is because, I mean, what it really comes down to, I mean, you can say that we're, whole within ourselves and understand all that, but how much influence do you have or have not as a creator, as a conscious creator in a quantum field, in terms of any prejudices or biases or bad feelings you might have towards a person in particular, or whatever, a situation or whatever. So that's another to me kind of a conscious human way to, because you hear a lot of people saying, I don't know, or feeling I don't feel like I'm doing enough and I can't do what you do. But I mean, there's these human things that we can kind of use as guides, and I think one of them is what you've said a couple of times, which is to recognize what you're looking at is learning at the rate you are, or maybe it's an NPC. But the potential of the NPC, what you just described a second ago, could be could be a PC that said, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm leaving. And then the next day you see this embodiment that you're talking about, and somebody who was kind of like offline is all of a sudden online like Buddha.
Exactly. And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be radical and fun, and I can't wait to have great conversations with the people that come and are like, hey, did you remember this thing that happened like 20 billion years ago? What about this thing over here and this thing and this thing? And I was just like, oh, so much information. It's going to be amazing, because as we live, the world will evolve. There is nothing that I am certain of in life other than change. Yeah. And that is it. Yeah. But one thing that I really, really love about this life is that every day that I show up in faith, I'm rewarded on levels I couldn't have dreamed of. I couldn't have imagined a better way of living that life. Now, that doesn't mean that I always have fun during those things. Sometimes those things are tripping on a log, but then making a best friend by doing it, right? I didn't know that the log needed to be tripped on until I tripped on the log, and my best friend shows up out of nowhere and like helps me up and says, hey, thanks for tripping on that. I didn't see that there. We don't know what we don't know until the end, and we're not at the end. We're getting closer to the first end, and that is the end of the lie. Yeah. When we walk into the light of truth and we begin to discover what we are, everything changes. The entire way that we understand this world, the entire way that we relate to our brothers and sisters, the entire way that we look at race, gender, ethnicity, all of those things, all of it, everything changes instantly the moment that you understand the truth. And that is the beauty of what's coming for us. Yeah. We will finally understand the truth. And I don't mean a truth. I don't mean somebody's truth. I mean the truth. And that truth is greater than anything that we can conceive of. And that truth is something that we are beginning to see little tiny things peek through. And it's going to be painful because there's been a facade around the truth that made it the lie. But as it falls apart, because it will, and only truth remains, it won't matter. If somebody was on this side of the truth or this side of the truth or that side of the truth, nothing matters. The only thing that matters is that we got there together and that everybody played their roles just like a watch. No one's greater or smaller. Everyone is equal in that way. And that's where faith equalizes us. Yeah. And that's what I'm looking forward to. I know that we're already there in a version of us because we all jumped equally, which is why today's such a great day, because this is the beginning of the reign of truth from a potential perspective. Physically, we're going to begin to embody truth more every day because more and more people will actually take the leap, not just the potential of the leap. And it's a beautiful time to be alive. And you're going to watch it happen on the world stage. You're going to watch it happen in your own life. You're going to watch it happen in your friends' lives. You're going to watch it everywhere. My only piece of advice that I want to offer, the last thing I really want to say today, is this is something that's helped me a lot in my journey, is everyone is perfect until they say otherwise. And if no one is saying anything, then it's time for me to work on me. Because if you don't tell me that you're not perfect, I don't have an invitation to show you what I see. I have an opportunity to reflect on why I don't see you as perfect. And that's more important, because if I can see you in your perfection, then you have infinite capabilities. And that also means that there's nothing for me to see within me other than your perfection. But if I am seeing the reflection of something that is off, it's not my job to poke at that. Unless you come to me and say, hey, Jason, I know that you see things that are different than I can see, and I'm open to your reflection. In which case, then that's time for me to work with you, because the only one that's perfect other than me in that moment is you. And so you're wanting to reach that perfection. So that's what that's for. But I've learned in my short life this. If I see everyone as perfect, and then I work on all the parts of me that can't, if I truly do that, then there is no shortage of people that are able to acknowledge that they're not in their perfection, that want support. And as long as I continue to be that support and continue to work and learn and apply and live and embody, the world works. And the world works on levels we can't even conceive of. Our controlling mechanisms cannot make a better world. It can't. You might think that you could do better, but you're not that thing. So how could you do better? So just remember the most important thing. Everyone in the world is perfect other than you until they say otherwise. So if no one else is saying otherwise, it's time to work on you. And if you live that for the next year, you'll notice that by the time we get to 2022, your life will have radically changed in the most beautiful and amazing way. And you'll have real lasting friendships that will last beyond eternity.
Right on. I'm looking forward to seeing, because obviously we all have our own experiences, but you can, or at least I feel that some of the aspects that we might come into contact with certainly represent more of an energy complex as opposed to a singularity in the essence of it, right? And to see that in the physical, like collaboration, like at Soulogy Fest when we got together, but to see that, or even this attorney that I was talking about in Australia, and her and 11 other women forming a council, a New Earth Law Council. These energy complexes coming together, which speaks to me in a couple of ways. One, the expansion, and two, the opposite of that, where we've done a lot of surrendering with all these different aspects of our lives. And the truth is that there's an energy complex building as we go. I mean, we're all basically carrying all that we've come across. So I'm interested to see some of this stuff like this under the radar coming out in September or anything like that, in regardless of the field, because I'm sure there's got to be a lot of them going already. And I just see it as, because even the person who's, let's say, the most pessimistic or whatever, one thing's for sure: if you do choose to stick around, it's going to make a believer out of everybody.
Yep.
Or anybody. I mean, we're talking about that type of miraculous transformation in a physicality, which is going to be irrefutable, and it's going to be amazing. And I'm buckled in. And now that you gave us a heads up for what day was that? 22nd, the next wave this month, the second.
The 21st. Yeah.
21st. Okay. All
That's when the tether for reality is complete. So we've been untethered from reality in the process of being retethered in reality, and the last individual fully tethers back in on the 21st, which is why there's a huge amplification.
Far out. That's far out. Well, I appreciate it, brother. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank you for doing what you do, and your continued work, and best of everything on everything that you're doing. I'll see you when I see you, and hopefully I'll see you in person at some point if I get back down that way, which I know I'm going to have to at some time.
Yeah, let me know. You can try out the table. Super fun.
All right, man. You take care. Thank you, everybody.